Hello and welcome back to the Coming of Cage podcast, your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Derek, and your other host, Ryan, is right here with me.
The other one of your hosts, Ryan, is right here. Hi, Derek. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm all right. I've got no complaints over here, just surviving.
You don't have
I'm
any complaints at all about maybe something you had to do for the podcast or
I no, because at least it was only 50 minutes long. I mean, it seemed
Yeah.
like it was 2 hours long, but
Whew. Yeah, so today we are talking about the 1990 TV movie Industrial Symphony No. 1, The Dream of the Brokenhearted, which is written and directed by David Lynch, who people may know from Twin Peaks and Dune and Blue Velvet and Eraserhead and other strange things. Um, yeah, this this movie is about the performer of Twin Peaks theme, Julie Cruz's experimental concert film, which opens with a short intro where a man breaks up with his girl over the phone, which devastates her. The concert is set in her nightmarish subconscious mind.
yeah, and I think to your point where you said that this is a TV movie, that's a bit of a stretch.
Well,
It's not really anything. There's no plot. It's just kind of a weird fever dream
there's a
where
lot of
you're
things I
like,
think are
I
a
feel like I
stretch.
should be high watching this.
It couldn't hurt. I'll say that. There's
It
no way
wouldn't
that would
make it
hurt.
worse. I
Yeah.
can't imagine. Yeah.
I mean, it also claims to star Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a stretch because they're only in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, which the whole movie I was like, well, the whole whatever it is, I'm calling it a
Event,
movie again is generous, but the
performance, the
whole
whole
thing,
performance.
I was like, okay, so when are Nick Cage and Laura Dern gonna show up again and kind of cap this bad boy off? Nope, credits it, and I was like, okay, I guess they're done. That's it.
Yeah, this came out the same year as their movie that they did with David Lynch, Wild at Heart.
Which
So
I actually heard that this is a good follow-up. Like you could see this in the same universe as Wild at Heart. Because I guess there are a couple in that movie, and that like this that kind of leads into this. I don't know how that could possibly make this any better, except that you get like maybe an ending with them that you didn't get in the movie. I don't know. We have not reviewed that movie yet, so I don't know. But yeah,
yeah, so they kick off the film. We get to see very tight close-ups of them individually on the phone in a blank room, and he breaks up with her.
yeah.
Oh,
Should
and
we get
that's
into the actual like substance of our podcast so we can go
yeah,
through this?
yeah. Let's do that.
I mean, I feel like you've already kind of
I'm sorry.
gotten into that, but
I'm trying to wrap my head around this thing, man.
so
Like,
the way we usually do this, which Derek has not been really following, probably because he does another podcast that you can listen to, where they probably do more traditional reviews. Um, but we go through. I take notes throughout the generally movies, sometimes other things that are not as easily describable, but yeah, and I just kind of go through it, anything notable, and we discuss each note in our podcast here.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
And my first note was that it was a super 90s intro. Well, really, it fit more 80s. Like it was like a neon color, like laser show intro.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. It felt very 80s, but this movie was 1990, which, if you're a film person, then you know that the early 90s was just the late 80s, really.
Well, and it was probably filmed in 1989.
That's true. That's true.
So I think that's fair.
So yeah, my next note is awkward breakup phone call. That's literally the entire bit with Nick Cage and Laura Dern, as we've already talked about. You get they weren't even in the same room. Like they were
No.
nowhere near. They were clearly having these conversations like one, just by themselves and stitched together. There was never a scene with the two of them. It was just always like a close up shot of them in a phone.
I wonder if they shot this while they were on set at Wild at Heart.
Probably. Because I
maybe.
can't imagine the budget for this was very high.
And by 2 minutes and 27 seconds, they're both gone.
Yes, they are. And then we start getting strobes and screams, which is a recurring theme throughout the entire whatever this is.
It's a
Um,
performance. I can go with
so
performance. I'm comfortable with that.
yeah, I mean, something was performed. I'm still not sure what it was, but
No.
yeah, like it's basically the whole thing is filmed in like one sound stage
Mhm.
with like the same like all the same props are set up throughout the whole thing basically, and there's some camera angles that change, but for the most part it's filmed all in like one, like you can see from one angle.
Well, the idea was that this was supposed to be a live stage concert performance that was filmed,
Yeah.
right? So that's what it was supposed to be. I don't know.
Right. So if you've ever seen like a Broadway production on like one of those fan of what's the thing they do at movie theaters, where you
Oh,
can
the Fathom
watch
events.
Fathom, like a Fathom event type thing,
Yeah.
it's kind of supposed to be like that.
Yeah, I mean they did some of these in the night. Like Meatloaf did one of these in the 90s. That was pretty popular with Bat Out of Hell and Bat Out of Hell 2 and all that jazz. But I don't know that this works in the same way, but that's what it was
But it
supposed
was
to
meant
be.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the lighting throughout this whole thing goes from blinding to darkness to red, like constantly. There's constant strobes. If this was in real life, I feel like that might work better, but uh especially through, 1990 camera technology. Because
Hmm.
I watched this, there's a 4K version on YouTube.
You found a 4K version?
Yeah, and it said it was 4K. It didn't look like, any kind of super high quality
Wow.
anything when I watched it, but um
Mine was definitely taken off of a VHS.
right. And I feel like mine was too, but it was transcribed in 4K maybe, so it's just like really high quality VHS. I don't
Well,
know.
it did get a DVD release in 2008 in this like package with another David Lynch thing. And so
Gotcha.
it could have been that
Could have
transfer.
been. Yeah, but I mean it still wasn't good. The way the lighting reacts with the camera and everything, it just the technology wasn't there to practice to like process the light changes effectively as like effectively as our eyes can.
Hmm.
So it just made it seem washed out a lot of the time, which I don't
Hmm.
think was intentional. And like if you were seeing it live, it would not look like that.
That's fair.
But yeah, it was like that constantly. And then there's constantly throughout the whole thing weird like upsetting, or not upsetting, but like music playing that's just a little bit off to make you feel uncomfortable.
And maybe it could have just been the quality of what I was watching, but I couldn't even really understand the lyrics.
No, I couldn't either.
Okay. Which
Some
makes
of
it
them I
even
could, but not a ton.
it makes it that much harder to follow. Like I had no
There
idea
was
what was
nothing to
going on.
follow. There
Not,
was
I
nothing
mean,
to. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a dream, right? And dreams don't make sense generally. So that's why I just plugged it in. I was like, okay, so whatever they're saying is must not that be that important because now there's a giant meat monster walking around
the
with no
goat, the deer or
context.
whatever
Yeah.
on stilts.
Yeah, and so along with that weird music, there was I put off key singing, but that's probably not fair. I don't think it was off key. It was more just like minor key singing.
Yeah.
That's just, like when they do these new movie trailers that take an old song and then they do it like in a minor key to make it sound like Jurassic Park, they did that with like some of the newer
Hmm.
Jurassic Park movies. They just try and make it sound like more sad,
Somber.
somber.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what this whole thing. Honestly, about 5 minutes into this, I was like, this just feels like a film student's like graduation piece that they were trying to turn in for credit at the end. Because it was just trying too hard, in my opinion, to be like edgy
Yeah.
or, deep.
The thing is, like, I agree with you 100%. But, like, I mean, David Lynch had already been working for like 20
Yeah,
years at
that's
this
what makes
point.
it confusing. It's like I'm not sure what he was trying to get across with this. Maybe we just aren't the target audience, and this was like a Twin Peaks thing that just. But I don't know how that could add any context to what was going on in
Well,
this.
the music, some of the music, a lot of the music is also seen in Twin Peaks. A couple of the actors are seen in Twin Peaks. That doesn't mean that it has any like narrative connection
Right.
to Twin Peaks though, right? So like I feel like it's a bit of a stretch there too, where they're just like, well, if you like Twin Peaks, you'll love this, right? Like
Right.
kind of thing. And I think it's just it was probably cheap for him to use music he had already licensed for his own stuff,
Probably.
you know?
So the woman that was singing just kind of comes out and stands there and sings. And then there's some other things start like happening, which this is a theme again where somebody will be singing and then just random crap starts happening around it. Like there's a woman, a naked, not naked, topless woman like
Hmm.
climbing through scaffolding
Yeah,
for some reason
sure.
because symbolism, I guess. I don't really know what the symbolism is supposed to be, but there's a lot of focus on this woman just scaffolding climbing and
Well,
eventually
there is that guy who's like kind of
that's my next note, guy on
floating.
wires. He just kind of
Yeah.
comes in and starts floating around.
So he's doing, and he's like, he's standing like at attention, but with his arms at his side, and he's just kind of like spinning like an action figure. And
Right.
she's like rolling around on the scaffolding, like you said. Then this is all happening at the same time while the first woman is still singing.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know.
it's just like I don't know if we're ever supposed to glean any kind of meaning from this. I know he was trying to make it seem like a dream or a nightmare,
Hmm.
and I guess that's fair, but I don't understand why it needed to be made if there wasn't really any point to it. Like, what was the point? Just to make it?
I mean, are the is the topless woman and the spinning man, is that supposed to be Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage's characters?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. The topless woman just kind of disappears.
Well, I was wondering if she's supposed to be, because there's a woman that comes back later or shows up later
I mean,
when
maybe.
the guy from Twin Peaks is talking, Michael
Right.
J. Anderson. He's got like a story bit that he tells, which is really just like
Phone call.
it's the phone call from the beginning of the movie. But there's a woman that comes out then, and I thought she was supposed to be the same woman that was the topless woman,
But
maybe.
does that make it like more discernible for you what the whole message was?
I mean, it makes me think that it's her dream. She's the one doing the dreaming.
Well, we know it's her dream because she's the one that was broken up with and is like devastated. And it says it in the thing.
Well,
The
that
concert is set in her nightmarish subconscious mind.
right, but I'm thinking that those two women are supposed to be her.
Do you see yourself in your own dreams?
Well, no, but somebody is what,
Exactly.
but this would be somebody watching my dream. And she's not seeing herself. We're seeing herself.
So why wouldn't you see it through her viewpoint then?
Are you saying that this is supposed to be through her viewpoint?
That's what a dream is. I mean, I don't know. I don't think either of us have any clue what this is supposed to be.
I thought we were
Anyway,
spectators. I don't know.
eventually the topless woman just kind of goes over to this old car that's on the ground and starts crawling all around and inside of it for some reason. Um, and then the singing woman starts flying.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's a really short guy that comes out sawing a log.
I think that's still Michael J. Anderson. I think he comes back and forth a few times.
Yeah, it probably is. I don't know his name, but he just comes out sawing a log for some reason. And then there's a guy that comes out with a flashlight as if he's like investigating something while
Mm-hmm.
this log is being sawed. And then eventually the guy that's sawing the log just kind of runs away.
Maybe it's supposed to symbolize you building a relationship.
Then a guy just comes out wheeling a light bulb behind him, like on a trolley.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he just is like pulling a trolley on a leash, but you
Yeah.
can't really see the trolley, so it looks like the light bulb is just kind of floating behind him. I think that's how it's supposed to be, but it was just again, I don't understand it.
Maybe
Um,
it's supposed to represent an idea, you
but when
know.
all that's happening, the sawing and everything like that, the flying singer is gone, and it's just kind of more screams and strobes.
Yes.
So then the flying singer comes back, and immediately falls from the ceiling and dies. Not the actual actress, but in
Right,
the
the character.
performance, the
Yeah.
character falls from the ceiling and lands partially on the car and dies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so then there's a bunch of guys that are like in like I don't know, old surgeon outfits or something. They're in some weird outfits, and they come out, and there's been like these stretchers, like multiple stretchers, and they've had like some meaty looking thing on it, but you can't really tell what it is. Well, then they get around these stretchers, and this person on really bad stilts because this person cannot stand and they have to lean against the things around them the whole time. But it's like a giant meat goat.
So it's actually credited as the tall-skinned deer.
Yeah, it looks like a deer that's been, or like some sort of quadruped that's been skinned.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah, with like antlers. But it's
Hmm.
very tall, probably 10 feet tall, something like
Yeah,
that.
very, very, very tall
But
with
again, the
super skinny
stilts,
legs.
it's not like painter stilts because they're very thin. The legs go down
Hmm.
to a point. You can tell that the guy, David Lynch, I'm assuming, had a vision of what this creature was supposed to look like, but that didn't really uh work with the physics of how this character has to interact because this guy
Right.
has to get up off these stretchers and then stand and kind of stand around like scare like he's trying to scare people or whatever.
Hmm.
But he constantly has his arm on the scaffolding next to him because he can't stand on these stilts without falling.
No, because the ends of them are like pool cues.
Yeah, I mean it goes down to a very fine like a very fine hoof.
Yeah.
But yeah, that comes to life. And I said, yeah, this person is struggling on the stilts. And then I think the screen went black and everybody kind of disappeared, and then the lights turned back on and everybody's gone,
But the
including
car is
the
still there, I
including the
guess.
meat creature. Yeah, all the props and everything are still there,
Yeah, that
but
doesn't really change.
um, then we get a voiceover with a topless woman running back and forth. Uh,
I don't remember that part, but it's hard to
and
discern the different scenes or
and then
beats or
somebody like runs out and puts the dead singer in the trunk of the car.
right. Hmm.
And when after he does that, the guy that was sawing the log comes out and literally just comes out and says the dream of the brokenhearted, which is the entire he goes through the entire phone call, um, kind of monologues the entire phone call from both sides.
While a woman wearing black is like feeling herself up the whole
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and there's a guy playing a clarinet next to him.
Right, yeah. Hmm. The
Yeah, because
clarinet
my next note was
soloist.
clarinet and then woman rubbing her body behind them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was I think he's related to the person who's got co-writing credits because they have the same last name, Badalamenti. Angelo was the writer and Andre was the clarinet soloist. I don't know.
Okay. So yeah, after that
That's all I got.
happens, that monologue happens, then like a old school kind of camera crew, like old school to us, I guess it was modern at the time, but kind of comes out and they set up like like a camera recording and open the trunk, and then they put some like TVs that are live streaming that are showing the video from the camera.
Was way ahead of his time.
Yeah, exactly. On the screens.
Hmm.
And then the woman starts singing again. Um, she's back to life, I guess, and we get a few minutes of that. And then some backup dancers show up,
Hmm.
like the old school. I don't remember what the name of those dancers is called, but like the or backup singers and dancers, like the one if you watch um, what's the musical with the plant that eats people?
Little Shop of Horrors?
Little Shop of Horrors, like they come out and the like three women sing and dance,
Yeah, yeah.
like that kind of thing. Like these women are doing a two woman like choreographed dance, like wearing the same thing. I feel like
Mhm.
there's a name for that. Musical people would probably know. I'm not one of those people, so I'm sorry for not knowing that name. But yeah, there's like those two, and then like a group of Rockettes shows up and starts leg kicking.
Yeah. I thought that's who you were talking about because
No,
it
because there's like the two women off to the side that are like next to the TV, and then there's a line of women that look like the Rockettes, and
right.
they're doing the Rockettes like leg kick thing. Then
Hmm.
they start dancing on their own over there, and the two are still doing their thing.
Everybody's just doing great.
And then there's sirens, and everybody just kind of runs around for a while and then runs away, and we get more
Oh my
screams
god.
and strobes.
Could you imagine what the choreography conversations were for this?
I don't know that there were any conversations for
Well, they
this.
had
They
to
were just kind of
go
like, guys, just go out there and like, there's going to
and
be a
run
meat
around.
monster. Yeah. Just go like worship this meat monster and he's going to stand up.
Oh
Um,
man.
and then, so after these screams and strobes, we get kind of like a red tinge to the lighting and a bunch of baby dolls start falling from the ceiling, like slowly, I'm not going to say falling, descending from the ceiling on strings. And
Yeah.
many of them have like their faces mangled.
Sure, of course they do.
Um, like just very slowly descending.
Hmm.
And then the flying singer comes back. And it's now it's flying again. And then the baby
Yeah.
dolls kind of retract into the ceiling.
Because
And
the
yeah,
singer is actually credited as the dream self of the heartbroken woman. So is she the woman?
there you go. That sounds like it,
So she's singing her dream?
I guess.
Okay.
Don't read too much into it, Derek.
I'm trying
So
to come
then
to
while she's
something.
singing, the lighting like changes kind of white, and a bunch of glitter essentially starts falling from the ceiling.
Hmm.
And with the light refracting it, it kind of looks like fairy dust or something. But the singer is still singing, and clearly, like it's falling into her mouth, and she's just a professional and doesn't let it bother her. But yeah, it was that happens. And then eventually she floats away, and it's over.
That's it. Yeah.
And all that stuff did happen in it. Like I
All this
wasn't
did
I wasn't
happen.
just making up random things. Those are all things that actually happened during this. And I have zero explanation as to what I watched or why I watched it
I
or why
fe-
it exists
I feel like
or what Nick Cage had to do with it.
I don't know. I think that's just because he and Laura Dern had just filmed the movie with him, and they were like around.
I guess.
But like I all right, I'll just say it. I don't get David Lynch. I don't. I've only seen a handful of his things. I've seen Dune, Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, and now this. Um, I don't get it. I don't get him. Like I found Eraserhead to be the most like a frustrating movie I've ever watched in my life. Um, People love this guy. And like, so the director of photography for this is John Schwartzman, who, people may not know, but this dude has been the cinematographer on movies like Pearl Harbor, Seabiscuit, Armageddon. He was the director of photography for Jurassic World. Like this dude has done major. Hey, he was the director of photography for National Treasure Book of Secrets. Look at that. And he did Meatloaf's picture show that I was referencing before. In 1994, he ended up doing that. Like this dude, like has worked on a lot of really big productions, with a lot of really big people. Oh, he did The Rock, director of photography for The Rock, right? Like people love David Lynch. This has a 7.0 on IMDb. I do not understand. And I'm starting to think people rate this stuff really high so people don't think they don't get it. But I'm okay saying that this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm not so like up into myself that can't admit when I don't understand something. In fact, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard me admit that I don't understand a lot of things, and sometimes Derek can explain it to me because he's smarter than I am. Sometimes there's no explanation that either of us can figure out, and if that's the case, because I like to think we're both decently smart guys at the very least, and we can't figure it out, then I can't imagine that out of 2,000 people on IMDb were able to figure it out and we're not.
I would argue that this is completely nonsensical.
And a lot of dreams are, so I get that, but in that case, it doesn't need to be made because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm glad some people enjoy it, and I hope I'm not taking away from their enjoyment of it by, pooping on it, but it was just not for me. And
No.
to your point about David Lynch, I haven't really seen much of his stuff. I've seen the original Dune. That's probably the only thing I've ever seen from him other than this, and we'll get to Wild at Heart. But yeah, I've heard really good things about Wild at Heart. We'll see, but those could also be from, big time David Lynch fans that just like his style.
I mean, like Eraserhead has a 7.3 on it, and I vividly remember watching this movie because it was impossible to find 20 something years ago, right? Like now you can get it, but it used to be impossible to get in the United States. And my buddy and I ordered a copy from another country and paid like $50 for it and everything. And we watched this movie, and man, that movie makes as much sense as this thing does. I don't think anybody actually understands this stuff. I really don't.
Maybe David Lynch does. I don't know.
Well, I hope he does because they are his stories, you know. So I hope he does, but I don't think anybody else does. Not people who
Maybe
do
they
not
just
know who he
appreciate the
is.
art of it. Like, when we watched what was the Exploding Testicles movie? Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Prisoner of the Ghostland.
When we watched that, I gave it a little bit higher score because there was some, kind of really interesting artistic decisions that were made in that movie. And even though I didn't necessarily agree with those decisions, I respected the fact that they were bold enough to be made. That was smaller parts of a larger movie. This is the entire movie. So, or whatever you want to call it, performance. So it's hard for me to separate that from, or like give it a higher score because of that, because there's nothing for me to glean from this.
Well, look, you know I did not like Prisoners of the Ghostland. You know that, right?
Right.
I like that more than this in Eraserhead.
Yeah. I mean, I like Prisoners of the Ghostland more because at least I could understand the plot for that. This I just couldn't understand
Right.
what I was supposed to be, what it
Yes,
was, what it was trying to tell me.
exactly. Totally agree with you.
Okay, so something we do on these podcasts is I usually go through some reviews afterwards. Usually I go through like some 10 stars and some 1 stars, but this as a whole only has 7 reviews. So total. So, I'm just kind of hit some of them here. Um 8 out of 10. Ever wonder what it would be like if David Lynch put on a musical stage show with Julie Cruz? Look no further. Industrial Symphony is a supremely strange show put together by David Lynch for the annual Brooklyn Academy of Music. They only had 2 weeks to prepare for the show, and so the result is rather remarkable. It opens with Sailor and Lula from Wild at Heart on the phone, with Sailor leaving Lula. The rest of the film is an extended fever dream on stage. It reminded me of a concert, only this is a concert by David Lynch, so there's awful blonde wigs, half-naked women gyrating on cars, and dwarfs sawing logs. Um, yeah, I don't really see how that gives it an 8 out of 10, but
I will say
um,
I cannot find any confirmation that Dern and Cage are playing the same characters.
yeah, I think people are just assuming that because this came out the same year as Wild at Heart and
Right.
that it stars the same people and it's directed by the same person. Um, this one is 10 out of 10. One of the strangest but most beautiful collaborations between Lynch and Badalamenti. How to describe Industrial Symphony? Well, it almost defies description in conventional terms, except that it's a story of broken love and a sort of floating angel singing of the innermost feelings of love and happiness that are always out of reach. That's the basic description, but what if I were to add that it includes a dwarf sawing a log, or that the said angel gets killed and dumped in the trunk of an old 50s car, or there's a big elk zombie at one point, or baby dolls that come down slowly with masks over their heads? That's just some of what makes up David Lynch's most underseen efforts, where he experiments yet again by filming a live stage show. Um, so this is where I guess the separation is between you and I and David Lynch fans, is that a floating angel, the singing of the innermost feelings of love and happiness that are always out of reach, sounds like a story, right? But like I don't understand why it gets amped up because it includes a dwarf sawing a log, or an angel getting killed and dumped in the trunk of a 50s car, or a big elk zombie. That doesn't add anything to me. That just makes it seem more nonsense.
I think some I think the person is trying to say that the sheer fact that it's experimentation makes it good, and I do not agree with that. I can respect the attempt that you were trying to do things that had never been done and you were trying something different. I can respect it. It doesn't mean it was good. You know, there's plenty of times I tried to cook a meal I've never cooked before. I give myself credit for trying, but it
This
doesn't mean it was
person
edible.
this person says that it's an emotional catharsis for them, and I'm happy for that, but I don't understand it. Um, 9 out of 10. I love this. For some reason, I tend to start disliking Lynch because I like his work so much. I went into this quite critical as I didn't really expect much, but still, Lynch just continues to enchant me as an artist. To explain what this is, it's a musical and a play, and it's about a woman being brokenhearted as she's being left. The strength of the whole thing is the atmosphere, really gripping and wonderful. There's fog all over the stage. And of course, the imagery and the lyrics. It's shocking but attractive. You never really get what's going on, though. It's really dreamy. But then how are you giving that a 9 out of, like, I don't know. If you never understand what's going on, how is that a 9 out of 10? Just because you like the imagery? I mean, I guess that's a reason. 10 out of 10. This person basically says that they were a big Peaks fan, and so that is, I guess, why they like this so much.
I mean, I have heard that Twin Peaks fans are pretty ride or die when it comes to that stuff. And having not seen it, I'm not gonna, comment on that. I know there's some really great actors in it, but I don't know enough about the franchise to say anything else.
See, this other person says that it was framed as Lula and Sailor breaking up at the start. It was probably something he had fun with for a few weeks after finishing Wild at Heart. But it's thin agency and mostly these forms mingling on a scrapyard stage. So that is also trying to say that this is a recurring character from Wild at Heart.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's a fair assumption to make. I just can't find anything that confirms it to be the truth.
yeah, I mean overall these reviews seem to all share the fact that they really like the imagery and they don't understand what like beyond that it's a woman breaking up with a man or a man breaking up with a woman and her dream afterward. That's about as much understanding as anybody gets out of this. People have read other things into it that they felt that it made them feel, and
Hmm.
that's great. It didn't make me feel anything except tired and wishing it was over and confused. I guess confused was also another emotion. But yeah, that's it. I mean, no real clarification on any of our things that we were wondering.
Yeah. No, there's not much out there on this, to be honest. There's really hardly any facts at all. On IMDb, there is one piece of trivia, which states that much of the music came from Twin Peaks, which we knew and already talked about. Uh, there's not a whole lot on this. It was released on VHS and Laserdisc in 1990 and 1991, and then was re-released in 2008 as part of some collection with something else of David
And on
Lynch's.
connection under connections on IMDb, it says Wild at Heart.
Yeah,
So, but I don't
as
know that that has any actual basis in something that came from David Lynch. It's just the same director and same actors.
it makes me feel like it's not connected simply because of how the characters are credited officially in the movie. Laura Dern is Heartbroken Woman and Nicolas Cage is Heartbreaker. So it's hard for me to believe that the same characters because that's not how they're credited in Wild at Heart,
Right. It
right?
also
So
says, like, if you click on that thing, it says the boyfriend and the girlfriend from the intro are possibly the two protagonists of the film.
mhm.
So, I mean, I think it's just a loose connection that fans put together and doesn't necessarily have any basis in what the actual production was, but he just had easy access to them because they were there for the
Right.
movie. That's my guess.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think having saying that it stars Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage got people to probably sit down and watch it.
It's got us to watch it.
Right? I mean, right? That's why it's on our list. And when you Google
Yeah.
it, like the Wikipedia straight up says, it stars Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern, yada yada. I'm like, it does not star them.
Right. That's a big stretch.
You're right? Like they're in it. You
It
know?
stars them just as much as what was that movie where they break down on the side of the road and he comes in like a sports
Ne-
car?
Never on Tuesday.
Yeah, it basically stars him as much as he does in that one, you know,
Yep, yep, yep.
or in the 80 that 180s movie that
But
he was
Fast Times.
yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where he's just kind of in the background for a few scenes.
I mean, at least he has dialogue in this one.
That's true. So I guess it stars him a little more than that one.
But we're really playing fast and loose with the phrase stars,
Yeah, for sure.
but that's it. Like that's the thing. There doesn't seem to be a Industrial Symphony number two
Thank
that
goodness.
by him anyway. There is something called that, but it has nothing to do with him as far as I can tell. David Lynch, that is. And so this was the end of that, I guess.
So we got to rate it now.
Yeah, so we have our Cage-O-meter. We rate on overall quality and overall caginess. 1 is low, 20 is high. Um, I mean, this is bad. It makes no sense to me. I found it just completely incoherent. I think this is going to be a 1
For quality.
for quality.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think I'm always hesitant to give out ones or 20s because it seems like every time we think that we found a one, that there's something worse. I'm not necessarily convinced, that there's going to be something worse than this one. I still will give it a 2 just because I think that the giant deer goat coming out of nowhere was interesting, and like some of the visuals ideas were interesting, but yeah, it was just mostly incoherent. You know, so I'm just trying to find the positives, Derek.
That's fine. I've only given a 1 out one other time, and that was to Never on Tuesday.
Well, you also originally gave Zondalia 1, I'm pretty sure, and then we retconned that.
We did a bit of a revamp of some of our scoring after we got like 25 movies in, and
Yeah,
multiple movies got moved,
right.
up or down, not just Zondali. But yeah, Zondali and Prisoners of the Ghostland are each a 2 for me, which I believe mark the next lowest ones for my scores. But you've had a few 2s
Yeah,
for
that's
what
where it's
it's
going to
worth.
sit for me.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's
It was
totally
this one
fair.
was probably the closest I've come to just straight out giving it a 1 because I did not enjoy, you
We,
know,
we don't
at
give
all.
the extremes much. I mean, I think the only 20 we've ever given out
Pig.
was Pig. I'm trying to find it on my list here. Yeah, we both gave Pig a 20. I don't think there's anything else. I gave Adaptation a 19.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is
so
one of the worst ones we've done for sure.
definitely, yeah, this is down there with Zondali. This is down there with Never on Tuesday. Um, you know, lower than Jujitsu, lower than Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Yeah, because at least we could find things to like about those.
They had some redeeming qualities. Yeah,
Right. This one, it's hard to find any for me.
it is. Now, caginess, it's always hard when he's barely in the freaking movie,
Yeah.
so like a 2 because he has an
I,
accent. Like,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't know.
yeah, I guess, yeah, I guess that's a good, reasonable score. But even the accent, you're not even sure if he has an accent like through most of it because you don't really get to hear much. But yeah, I guess I'm good with it too, also.
Okay, so a 1.5 on quality and a 2 on caginess for Industrial Symphony #1, The Dream of the Brokenhearted. Next up, we have to figure out what is going to join the Wheel O Cage and replace our our lovely movie here. So I'm going to go ahead and run our little computer system. And joining the Wheel O Cage will be, oh yeah, baby, Con Air.
Nice.
Con
So now we
Air has
have
joined the
two of the
wheel.
Holy Trinity movies on the wheel.
Yes, yeah. Con Air and Face Off are both on the wheel. They're both eligible now to be picked. We've got some fun stuff on the wheel. We have Renfield is on the wheel, as well as Butcher's Crossing and Honeymoon in Vegas. So that's all really exciting stuff. So if you want to find out which Nicolas Cage movie we're going to talk about next, you'll have to catch the Wheel O Cage. You can go to comingofcage.com for all of our links. You can watch us and see our faces on the Derrico Studios YouTube channel. Ryan, anything else?
No. I'm totally good being done with this movie or
All right.
whatever you want to call it.
Our shortest episode ever coming in at under 40 minutes. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you
Bite
next time.
size. See you next time.